You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Bill Flowers. He comes on every week, and this is Hands Team. And obviously, Bill, we have a fantastic game. What was your experience? What was going through your head watching that Ole Miss Georgia game?
Well, I'd like to first congratulate the Lane Kiffin 2.0. This is a completely different coach. I think you see a much more mature coach that has definitely whatever's happened. Whatever, if he's decided to take this team over and be completely in control, I just want to congratulate him because I think he put himself into a completely different category of from a coaching standpoint of who he is. We've seen 3 consistent games where he has essentially taken over, or everything's looking consistent. That is not the case. And as everybody knows, Lane Kiffin is not known for being consistent. And that's what, if he can continue to do this, then like we just mentioned, I think he can win 6 games in a row. And I think he can put himself into a different category of top coaches in the country. I mean, shoot, if he can recruit and get the portal and play big boy ball consistently, then man, Ole Miss has a very, very, very bright, long future. It was awesome to see them to get the ball out of their hands quickly. You saw the defense just absolutely pin their ears back and do exactly what they were designed to do. You're seeing a lot of news right now about the portal and how important it is to be able to transform your team. And the teams that are being mentioned are obviously Ole Miss as a top program that has transformed their defense. I mean, last year he said after the Georgia game we had to be a different team in the trenches, and he did exactly that in the portal. But Jaxson Dart has done a great job of getting the ball out quickly. Kiffin play calling. I think they did an amazing job Saturday.
And the crazy thing is Jaxson Dart played, that was a legacy game. That was a Matt Corral, Tennessee, a Chad Kelly, Alabama. That was a legacy game for Jaxson Dart. So congratulations. So I'm not minimizing anything he did with about what I'm about to say. But there was a pass on 3rd and 10 that Austin Simmons had in his series that he came in.
Yeah.
Georgia dropped back into a zone coverage. They had the play completely triangled in to where if it was underthrown a little bit, Georgia had a pick. If it was overthrown a little bit, Georgia had a pick. And Austin Simmons not only threw that ball, threw it in the perfect spot, and it was like a 20-yard completion to Caden Lee.
So here's the problem that you got. If he gets to play any more than he does, then his value goes up and you have to pay him more. Or somebody says, I think I found our quarterback that we can get for $2 million instead of $3 or whatever the value is. Because that one drive he had, I'm just gonna admit it. I was like, Dart is injured. This kid's not. This kid just looked about as good as you possibly could look. He ran, he threw, he executed flawlessly. And the silver lining that I think that Ole Miss fans should be most excited about, and Kiffin's most excited about, is that at least you know that you've got a quarterback that you're not going to have to go out into the portal and spend a lot of money for. You can take that money and put it into the other areas that you feel like you really need to uh, to improve. So that's what I take out of it. Flawless.
Yeah. The last time I felt like that, the last time that feeling was over me, because remember, that was a down situation. The interception, the injury to Jaxson Dart, the touchdown by Georgia, you were about as down as you could be in that football game. The last time that I had the feeling that Austin Simmons gave me in that game was on December 28th, 2000, when Eli Manning went into the game. Yeah. In that Music City Bowl. That was the last time I felt like that.
I agree.
What was that like for you whenever you saw Eli go in that night?
Oh, man, I thought, you saw somebody that you saw him play. You just saw, you knew that if I had a quarterback that was going to be half as good as Peyton, that you knew you were going to have a quarterback. And obviously, that game gave everybody, excitement knowing that, we've got our quarterback.
Yeah. And Austin Simmons just let every Ole Miss fan know, every recruit, Ole Miss is going to get Caleb Cunningham probably to commit to Ole Miss and sign with the Rebels, the 5-star wide receiver out of Ackerman, because of that series from Austin Simmons.
Strong.
Yeah.
Strong work.
Yeah. Because it's a receiver catching the ball. You know that, because everybody's been selling to Caleb Cunningham that after Jaxson Dart leaves, who does Ole Miss have? What's going on?
Well, and not only that, it's a way to not only recruit him, but the other players around, around the team, knowing that. I mean, look at Auburn. Auburn is one quarterback away from having a 180-degree season. It affects you in every way. It affects the morale. It affects everything. So I think that having that quarterback, if Auburn could do it over again, they would have spent that money for Cam Ward, and I think they would have seen 1,000% return on investment. Having a quarterback in the wings that everybody's excited about is going to pay dividends on the transfer portal and high school recruiting.
Yeah, tomorrow's show, I'm actually doing it about how Auburn, of all teams, is the key for Ole Miss hosting in the playoffs. If Ole Miss wins their last 2 games, it's going to come down to what Auburn does against Texas A&M and against Alabama. And that's a weird scenario, but it's a scenario that you've kind of earned with the loss to Kentucky.
Well, I think the Alabama game that game is just exciting to watch, because Auburn and Alabama, I don't care what the records are, that the records go out the window. No disrespect to Ole Miss and Mississippi State for the Egg Bowl, but there's nothing that compares really to that to the Iron Bowl with regards to what's going to happen. Last year Auburn lost in the last play of the game, and Auburn had no business playing in that game. And so I could definitely see Auburn come out this year and beat Alabama. I mean, there's no if you can spy Melrose and just make sure that you have him under wraps, I think you can. I think you can do I think Alabama is not as good as what they looked last week. That was a new wrinkle that they put in. SEC teams are going to adapt. So I think that Auburn's just not going to let Melrose beat them single-handedly.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen today. When we come back, Bill's going to explain why we should be rooting for the Georgia Bulldogs, the South Carolina Gamecocks, and yes, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Stick around for that. Game Time is the place to get your Ole Miss tickets with the killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets. there's not a bad seat in the pavilion or Vaught Hemingway Stadium, but Game Times lets you see what the view is from that seat before you buy the tickets. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and all of that stuff. They take the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets with Game Time. And with this being the most anticipated season in Ole Miss history, I might be able to help you out with tickets as well. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Have you ever heard of the South's favorite pickle? I'm talking, of course, by Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles. If you don't think you like pickles, that's probably because you have not tried these yet. These pickles are so fresh and crunchy with just the right amount of Cajun kick to keep you coming back for more. And they're not just delicious. They're also handmade by a family-owned company on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, so every bite is packed with that authentic Southern flavor. But Stewart's doesn't just stop at pickles. They've got pickled green beans, okras, carrots, asparagus too. Perfect for spicing up your snack game. You can find these amazing products at Rouse's, Sullivan's, Corner Market in Hattiesburg, and even some Winn-Dixie's along the Gulf Coast. Or if you prefer shopping online, head to thepickledstore.com. Make sure you give them a like and a follow on Facebook and Instagram. And when you shop local and try these pickles, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles, the South's favorite pickle. All right, Bill. So Ole Miss dropped the game against Kentucky, which means that Ole Miss is going to need help if they want to host, because right now Texas and Alabama and Tennessee sits ahead of them in the college football playoff rankings. I think that Georgia is going to take care of Tennessee this weekend. We'll get your opinion on that in a second. But also, like I said, Alabama has a chance to fall to Auburn as well. Texas, they're going to walk into a cauldron, much like Georgia just walked in against Texas A&M. There's a lot of football left to be played, and I think that Ole Miss has a good shot of accomplishing every single one of the goals they set in preseason.
Well, I think if I got to pick my road to the playoffs and to the championship, I'm gonna want to be that third team in the SEC that doesn't have to play in the SEC championship game. That gives me a week to not beat the crap out of myself. Also to rest and prepare for another team, kind of understanding who you're playing. I can't see, because potentially that team that plays in the SEC championship game that loses could definitely shoot themselves in the foot if it's a close, if everything's, if everybody's in the same boat, tied, that third team, they're in the best spot. They're not having to beat themselves up. They're not having to potentially shoot themselves in the foot and not be able to make the playoffs. So I think that's the best route. The other route is to play in the SEC championship and win, and then you automatically get yourself, a bye and host. So I think those are the two routes you want to take. I don't think you want to be number 2 in the SEC.
Yeah, and looking at the tiebreaker philosophies for the SEC championship game, Ole Miss, they can get there. They're not mathematically eliminated, but it's going to require Vandy to beat LSU and Tennessee and Auburn to beat A&M and Alabama. And that doesn't feel likely. Also, Texas has to lose twice, so Arkansas has to pull that upset as well. So that's good news that Ole Miss can focus all of their energy on hosting.
Yeah, so I don't know how you host. Explain to me how you host if whoever wins the SEC championship, they're going to host, are they not?
No, the team that wins the SEC championship is going to go straight to the Sugar Bowl, so they're not going to play until January.
They get their bye.
They'll get the bye.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, and then whoever loses that game is either going to be hosting as well. Let's say if Alabama's in that game against Texas or whatever, whoever loses that game is probably going to end up hosting, and then Ole Miss might slip into that number 8 spot. I mean, that's what they're hoping. If Auburn can cause a little chaos with Texas A&M and Alabama, and then Texas A&M beats Texas, all of a sudden Ole Miss is sitting pretty. They're not going to Atlanta, but they're probably the highest ranked SEC football team.
So you don't think there's any concern for being in the SEC championship game and losing?
Oh, I think there's a huge concern, because if you lose that game, you've got to come back in 10 days and play another football game against a team that is fairly rested, because the odds are they did not have a championship game. And for the right to play one of the, I'm just going to say, the lesser teams like BYU and something like that doesn't come until January. But this first game, you're probably going to have to, if you lose that championship game, you're probably on the road at State College. You're on the road at South Bend. And you're going to deal with weather and all that stuff. Yeah.
You don't think there's a chance that whoever's in that second place, whoever loses the SEC championship game, does not get into the playoff game?
I think they're going to make it, but I think they're going to have to travel, because whoever gets into that game is probably going to loses that game is going to have a 3 next to their loss column.
Oh, right.
And yeah, so they're going to be traveling. They're going to South Bend or State College or something like that.
So you think the third team
is hosting? They're 5 or 6 seed, 7 seed, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so you think there's a chance that they can host? I mean, obviously, if Ole Miss can host, because I think right now the projection is to go to Penn State, and play in that environment, which would be, listen, there's a reason why Ole Miss fans should be completely excited, have no fear about who they're playing, is because you're not relying on an offense to be the king and savior. That is what Ole Miss has played in the past. That is not what wins championship games. What wins championship games is having a defense of line that controls the line of scrimmage. And to put a cherry on top, if you can get nasty pass rushers to get to the quarterback, it doesn't matter what environment you play. It allows you to control the narrative, and it allows your offense to be able to do what they do. So I do not worry about Ole Miss going to Penn State. I think that would be awesome for the players. I think that the players, it would be a blessing for the players to be able to go and play in a different environment like that for their college careers. I mean, I can tell you right now that I look back in my career, and I think I loved playing in Death Valley. I loved playing at Florida. These are memories that I'll hold for the rest of my life. So for them to be able to go play at Happy Valley in front of a whiteout, and just smash them in the mouth and quiet 107,000 people, I think would be an amazing thing for those players. So if they end up having to go that route, good for the players. They'll take care of them. They'll take care of themselves. But obviously, being able to host a game in Oxford is what would be best. I would love that, but I would probably, I had to sell my tickets for the Georgia game because I was with my daughter last week. And so I at least now have my ticket money to go to Happy Valley if that's what I need, because I would definitely travel for that. But either way, Ole Miss should be so excited about their defense and how, regardless of where they have to go play, that they will control the narrative.
Yeah, you want to hear a really interesting, really fun stat? Ole Miss has like 105 tackles for loss this season. That is nearly 20 more than the number 2 team in college football.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, that being able to have run stoppers in the middle, and then be able to have your pin your ears back and be able to just wreak havoc from the edge. That's every defense's dream. And I think Pete Golden has done an amazing job with his defense and the schemes, the identity. So I think they obviously there needs to be some. We have to win out. I mean, we obviously have to beat Florida and take care of business. And Florida's. I was saying look better, but I was a little shocked at the statement about them, keeping their coach 100% confidence. But if that AD gets fired before the season's end, obviously that statement goes out the door. So, Florida is a great atmosphere to play in, and Ole Miss will have to bring the win and obviously win the Egg Bowl. But I'm excited about it.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Bill Flowers joining us each week like he always does. Bill, what do you got going on this week, bud?
I'm actually traveling to Jaxson, Mississippi. My daughter's got a golf tournament. So we'll be playing in Madison for her golf tournament. So that's what I'll be doing in the great state of Mississippi.
Nice. Yeah, if anybody's in the golf tournament in Madison, Mississippi, tell Bill Helly, right? So anyway, thank you for coming on, bud, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. Howdy toddy.
Howdy toddy.